honor to have in our studio, for honor of the mayor, this is Cynthia Connor, and we're delighted to have you here, Cynthia.
Thank you. You can call me Your Honorableness.
Your Honorableness,
yes.
All right. I don't think I can remember
No,
that.
That's all right. Cynthia will do fine then.
I've known Cynthia from California Club a few years ago, and she's an all right person, I'll have to say, even though she is the mayor of our fair city.
Well, the way I became the mayor was by persuading a lot of people that I was an all right person.
That you're all right. That's right. So, Cynthia, where did you begin life's journey?
Well, I was born on the East Coast, but I grew up in California since I was 6, and was raised in the San Fernando Valley, then went to school at UCLA. I played the violin in the symphony orchestra, and
Really?
I was the captain of the gymnastics team.
No kidding. You were a super achiever from the get-go.
I was. After college, I moved up to Mammoth for a couple of seasons.
And
life as
for
a
skiing?
skier.
Or,
yeah. It was lovely as long as skiing and beautiful outdoor vistas and sunsets and hiking, as long as that's all you cared about, it was good. But I was a shop clerk at Kittredge's Sporting Goods, and I couldn't see any way to ever become, an owner, a restaurant, business owner, or a professional, or anything else.
So limited
like that.
opportunities.
I mean, there were people there. There were contractors and plumbers and homeowners and judges and teachers, but I couldn't figure out how I would get there from that position.
And so what did you do?
So I knew that the Army sent people to law school, so I joined the Army with the intention of going to law school.
And did that work out? Because sometimes it doesn't.
Well, eventually it did.
Okay.
They had a habit of selecting men for this project because the men were the ones who had gone to West Point, and so they were really known quantities to invest in. But at that time, back in the 70s, women were not admitted into West Point, and so I didn't have the opportunity to do that. And by the time I was done, I had involved the National Organization for Women and a number of commanding generals that I knew to write letters on my behalf. And I contacted the head of the House and the Senate Armed Services Committees and my own congressman and my own senator.
Wow.
And they
I'm sure by then you had a reputation as being one who finds a way.
3 months later, I was accepted.
Okay, and where did you go to law school?
I went back to UCLA for law school. Okay. It was the best place I got into, so that's where I went.
So then you continued to serve in the Army, was it?
Yes.
As a lawyer. As a lawyer.
First I went to Korea, and I served in the 2nd Infantry Division at Camp Casey near the DMZ. Really good on-the-job training. And then I came back to California, and I served at the Presidio of San Francisco, which is the carrot that you get after the end of being in Korea. And then they had this trouble with way too many lawyers, and the guys at the top weren't retiring, and so nobody was getting promoted. And so,
kind of the way it is in the military, sort of between wars or whatever. They have too many officers, and then they don't have enough. And
so then I got out.
You got out. So you were how long in the military all told?
11 years.
11 years. Any cases that stick in your mind as being interesting or significant?
Really different kinds of cases. In Korea, the cases were a lot of drunken, disorderly kind of offenses, bar fights, beating up the comfort women, some barracks thefts, some supply thefts, driving drunk, going out so drunk at night. Which
side of all this were you on?
At that time, I was on the prosecution side.
Oh, okay.
And it was interesting. You were kind of on the, the commanders all loved me because I was working for them. And they spend 90% of their time on 10% of their trouble people. And so the more you could get them out of the way, the better it is, the easier it is for them to keep their units strong and happy. Then when I got into San Francisco, there was a hospital there, and so there were more hospital-related things. Most interesting one was a doctor who had a purchased degree from a Caribbean university. And he passed the foreign medical exam and joined the Army and performed hundreds of surgeries, mostly simple carpal tunnel releases and knee ligament repairs. Had an excellent bedside manner. All his patients loved him.
But no medical degree, really.
Right, and the New York State Licensing Board found this out, the similar pattern with his brother and his sister who had the same degree.
Really?
And then came after, then it was revealed to him. So there's no crime in the military for practicing medicine without a license. But there is one for making false official statements.
I see.
So that's what he was charged with. And all his patients came in and said, "We love this guy. He did such a great job for me. If I had a chance, I'd send my wife and my kids to him. I'd go back and get operated by him again." So what was the judge going to do? He dismissed him from the Army. He made him pay $2,000.
$2,000.
And he went off to Switzerland and went to medical school.
Oh, well, he did eventually then get into medical school.
Yeah.
Now that he'd been practicing for some years.
Right. I imagine he found it easier to get through.
Probably. Now, after the Army, what did you do?
Then I practiced civil litigation.
Okay.
First in San Francisco, then in Las Vegas, and then down here in Southern California.
Okay.
And that was really interesting because every case is different. It might be about how to discharge taxes in a bankruptcy. It might be about a scaffolding collapse. It might be about a bicycle whose wheels fall off because the person who bought the bike wasn't trained in how to do the snap-on wheels, things like that. So every case was different. You learn about a lot of different things.
So you found it interesting.
Yeah.
And you were on which side of?
Both sides.
Both sides. Okay.
I won't say both sides at the same time.
No.
But at the same time, I might have a case represent a plaintiff and another case representing a defendant. A lot of times, our clients were insurance companies, and so on those instances, we represented the defendants.
Somewhere along the line, you apparently fell in love, been married, and had some children, I believe. Right?
Yeah. Well, I met my husband, Jim Juhan. We met when I was still in the Army, and he was still in the Army. But then I went off to law school and to Korea. And by the time I got to San Francisco, he had retired, and he was widowed during that interim. And one of our mutual friends said, "You guys are both in San Francisco. You should look each other up." So we did after like 5 or 6 years. And he had 3 teenagers. And so we got married. And now one of them is a very successful personal injury lawyer in Houston. And one of them works for Expedia in Seattle. And the other one is involved in senior care also in Houston.
Wow, so you inherited a family of teenagers. I admire your courage.
Well, it was...
Maybe not your wisdom, but your courage.
Well, it was good for me because, I was in my late 30s by then and figuring I probably would never have kids. And then suddenly I did, and it was very enriching.
Now, at some point, you turned a corner and got into politics. Was that after you moved here?
Yes. It was sort of an accident. I had been here only maybe 6 months, and there was a sign that said, "We're looking for people to run for Third Mutual." And out of a great sense of naivete and some significant curiosity, I decided to go ahead and do that. I wanted to learn how things work and who was in charge and why things happened the way they did and so forth. And at the first Meet the Candidates televised discussion, there were a lot of people who had lived here longer than I who had been very active in community events, and people were submitting questions to be asked of those folks. And nobody was submitting questions to be asked for me because I was brand new and an unknown quantity. And I thought, well, if I just sit here like a potted plant, nobody will know who I am.
Right.
So I began chipping in whenever I had anything articulate to say, and because I speak well, I presented well, and then lots of people voted for me.
Very good.
Then after a few years on the board, which was a contested and vigorous time because PCM was still here.
Oh, right.
There was a vacancy on the city council. And then Mayor Bob Ring suggested that I should put my hat in. So I did. And so I was appointed to the city council in 2009, which is the much easier way to get on.
Right. And once you're on,
then you run for re-election.
But you're already known a little bit.
That's correct, yes.
At that point. So you've been on the city council now how long?
10 years.
10 years. Okay.
Now I'm the ranking member. So.
Are you?
Yes.
And how does one get from being a city council member to being mayor?
The council has 5 members, and normally the mayorship rotates among them a year at a time. So this is my 3rd one-year term.
I see. Okay. And what does the mayor do?
In terms of within the city, the mayor's duties are not visible, really. Signing checks, approving the minutes, signing the resolutions, and chairing the meetings. But the mayor has the same vote as anyone else, the same weight in debate as anyone else, and the same ability as anyone else to put an item on the agenda. But off of the city council, outside, there's 2 things. First, within the community, if somebody wants a dignitary at their event, they want the mayor. They don't want a council member. If someone's going to come and present an award on their 50th anniversary or whatever it is, they want the mayor to show up.
So you get to do a lot, be a dignitary and a lot of
and
different things,
that's one of my favorite things, is just going out and being city to a lot of people who don't think much about what the city does or the fact that there is a city, and just making sure that people know that we are there and we do things. Then aside from that, everybody on the board sits on other regional bodies. Pay attention to water, pay attention to trash and recycling, which is what I do, pay attention to transportation, work on fire issues, work on senior issues. People kind of get their own niche.
Right. And of course, when we think of government, there's all kinds of levels of government, from federal to state to county, city, and then there are some special districts like schools and water and all of that. So it's fairly complicated. What is the city's niche in all of this?
Some of the positions that we're on are by virtue of our location. Because we are part of the fire authority, Councilman Noel Hatch is a director on the fire authority. Because we are within the Vector Control District, one of our people is appointed to the Vector Control District. Because we're next to the Wilderness Park in Laguna Canyon, I sit on the Coastal Greenbelt Authority. Some of them are county positions, some of them are regional positions, some of them are special interest districts.
So you're not just involved with the city itself, but members of the city council serve in some of these other other groups.
And I would say for most of us, and certainly for me, the things that I do that are broader than the city take up much more time.
Really?
So all of the elected city officials are the people that spread out from all the cities and take care of all the regional governance.
Now I know that policing in the city is done by, I think, as a contract with the county sheriff.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, we pay the sheriff, and the sheriff provides us with deputies.
Now, do we have our own kind of dedicated deputies?
We do have
in the city?
dedicated deputies, and we have paid for cars. So if you see sheriff cars riding around the, say, Laguna Woods and have our seal on them, those are cars that the city has actually paid for.
I see.
And they traditionally patrol here. But whenever our people are tied up and there's a 911 call, somebody comes in from Lake Forest or Aliso Viejo or something.
So that's an advantage of having
this regional coverage.
Regional coverage. You can get more officers in a short period if you need them.
Or if our people are not busy and there's a call that comes in from Lake Forest, then one of our people can go out and cover it. And then they, it's everybody logs where they are, and monthly it gets balanced out and averaged out.
Now, do we have one officer on duty all the time, or how does that work?
I believe we have 3 officers on duty during the day and 2 at night.
I see. Okay. And how do we pay for this?
Through the teeth. Our city's general budget is about $6 million, and almost $3 million of that goes to the sheriff.
Wow.
We did a recent budget, and that's money that comes to us primarily from property taxes and sales taxes. And we get only a little bit of each. Out of, when you pay sales tax, 1 penny of your sales tax comes to us.
Oh, is that right?
When you pay your property tax, less than 1 cent per dollar comes to us.
Really?
Yeah. About 75% to the schools, the community colleges and the school districts and so forth, on the theory that education is a global benefit.
Because we don't have school-age children
Right,
living
we
here.
don't. And, if they could just take out 1 penny and give us another penny more, that would be good. But in our city, a lot of the businesses that generate sales tax are turning to service-oriented places. For example, the Hometown Buffet closed down, and in its place now is the Goldfish Swim School. And the Vaughn Supermarket closed down. And one of the tenants in there now is a fitness center.
Right.
So that we're not.
And do these not collect sales tax?
Yeah, if they sell services, they don't
I see.
collect tax
I
on
see.
them. But if they sell products, they collect taxes. So we don't have a really vital sales tax base, and the way things are going here, we don't really, as a city, have any control over who rents space and what kind of a business they set up. But this year, we're just starting our budget forecasting, and what we find is that we anticipate maybe a $100,000 increase in what comes into us from these kinds of sources. But the increased cost of our sheriff's department is going to be $110,000.
Oh.
So it's going to absorb all of that increase and take some of our other operating money, and we have to find places to make small cuts. And it'll be the same next year and the year after.
Wow.
So we're really concerned about that.
So you say the cost of that we pay the sheriff's department keeps going up?
Yes. And the number of sheriffs that we have working for us is fixed by the sheriff's department. They decide, based on our 911 history, how much coverage we need. And we don't seem to have any say in that.
Really?
The amount they get paid is fixed through negotiations between the union and the supervisors, and we don't have any say in that. But the supervisors, of course, appreciate, union votes and things like that, and so they are susceptible, I think, to wage claims and hard bargaining by the union. The pension costs get set by the state pension board. We don't have any control over that.
Wow.
And the sheriff's department establishes what you might call the burdened rate. They know how many patrol officers have a sergeant and how many sergeants have a lieutenant. So for each of our officers, we're paying for like 1/6 of a sergeant and 1/10 of a lieutenant or something like that. And
so
we don't have any
the
control over that.
So the bottom line on the bottom line is we have no control over any of it.
That's correct.
The sheriff's department tells us what we have to pay, and
then we
have to
pay it.
Any viable alternatives to that?
We have reached out to the cities of Laguna Beach and the city of Irvine to see if they were interested in contracting with us for police services, but that didn't bear any fruit. And the South 8 county cities, who are in similar circumstances to us, banded together to conduct a study to figure out if maybe we could form our own local sheriff's department. But when you add in the cost of building a headquarters and building a call center and doing all those other things, it wouldn't be any cheaper than using the infrastructure that's already in place. So for the time being, we're doing some belt tightening, but we're going to have to be looking at trying to find some ways that we can increase our revenue.
And that, of course, sounds like a tax increase.
Well, it sounds like a tax increase, but we're hoping it's not a tax increase.
Okay. What other alternatives are there?
Because basically anything that we do has to be approved by the voters. So if the voters don't want to vote a tax increase, it's not going to happen. So that's why we're trying to look at other places where we can charge fees for our services.
I see.
Or other things like that.
Now, that's the biggie. That accounts for about half of your budget. What else is the city doing for us?
Well, we're hosting the library.
Okay. Now, this is a county library, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But any city that wants to have a library has to provide a space for it.
I see.
We've built a network of golf cart trails that allow you to get to almost anywhere in the city. Some of it is through the village, and some of it is on public They used to be sidewalks, but now they're multimodal trails.
Okay.
Because you can have bicycles and all kinds of things on them. We're, of course, responsible for all building permits and all plans. We're responsible for maintaining our city streets, which do happen to be in excellent condition because we've taken very good care of them.
Now, does that include the streets within the village as well as those
only
outside?
the ones outside the
Only the
gates.
ones outside. The association within the village takes care of the village
Correct.
streets. Right.
And we maintain 3 city parks, including the famous dog park, or infamous as it might be, which is really getting lovely. You should drive by it on Ridge Route. There's a great
is it
sign
open
up.
yet, or?
Not yet. It's supposed to open, I think, in June. But it's got engineered gravel and fill down below it and special drainage and brand new specially designed artificial turf for dog parks, new shade trees.
Wow.
It's going to be it's a dog Ritz-Carlton.
Wow. My dog and I will be happy to take a walk there when it's open. That should be fun. Yeah.
We provide notary service for our residents at no charge.
Very nice. The
Taxi
city.
vouchers.
What, say again?
Taxi vouchers, one of our best programs.
Oh, okay. Tell us what that is. I heard the
We
word.
subsidize taxi rides for our residents on the theory that if it's time for people to stop driving, we want them to stop driving. But we still want them to be able to get to any place that they would go to if they were driving. So any place within Orange County, as long as your trip starts or ends in Laguna Woods, you can use taxi bucks that you buy at City Hall, and you pay $70 and you get $100 worth of taxi rides.
Okay, so you
that's
get
a 30% discount.
30% discount.
And we have some very substantial discounts for medical trips to doctor's appointments and therapy. For $4, you can go to Mission Hospital or Hoag or Kaiser or UC Irvine at Irvine.
Really?
And that's kind of the radius. And for $6 or $8, you can go up to UC Irvine in Orange and to the more distant places, Loma Linda and places like that. And for $12, you can go all the way to the VA in Long Beach.
Wow. And you can find out about that by...
There's some on the city's website, and you can go to City Hall.
Okay. What about the council meetings? Are they open?
Yes, they're open to the public. They happen every third Wednesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and usually they're over by 5. And just like at the board meetings, anybody from the public can come and address the council on anything on the agenda or anything else that's of concern to them.
You welcome that
We welcome that.
feedback?
Well,
within reason, I suppose.
Well, our meetings are normally much less contentious than homeowners' meetings. Our board is very cordial and civil with each other, and usually our residents don't yell at us or harangue us,
Oh, nice.
except on matters relating to the dog park.
Oh, yeah. Laguna Woods, the city of Laguna Woods and Laguna Woods Village are not exactly the same, but how much bigger is the city than the village?
The city has 1,500 or more residents. They live near Gate 7, they live in the Willows and the Regency. Near Gate 3, they live in the 2 residential facilities there, Las Palmas and Palm Terrace. And next to CVS, they live in the San Sebastian Apartments. Then we have shopping centers. We have the Stater Brothers Center.
Right.
And, of course, the town center where the community center is.
Right.
And Jersey Mike's and
All of those are
places.
part of the city.
And the new swim school.
So if you spend money there, the city gets a
We
penny
get a
of
little
every
bit of
dollar.
tax. I encourage that. And then we have the public storage center across from Polly's Pies.
Oh, yes.
And we have all 4 corners of Moulton Parkway, the Aldi Center and the drive-through Starbucks and the gas station and the car wash. We have the CVS Center and Mother's Market.
And
our 3rd Starbucks.
Okay.
I figure as long as we have 3 Starbucks and a coffee bean, we're a trending city.
We are a well-capitated city.
I count on it.
What in your time now with the city, what changes have you been especially pleased with that has happened with the city?
I think that we have done a great deal to become right-sized through, in the 20 years since we started. When we first started, we were just kind of scrambling and doing things by the seat of our pants and looking around to see how other people were doing it and taking over and continuing what the county had done when we were county space.
Because the city is really very young.
Young as cities go, yes. Over time, we have gotten our personnel structure lined up so that we have our admin people going here and our financial people and our building and planning people. And there's sort of a sequence of junior level to mid-level to senior level. But we only have a staff of nine and a half full-time equivalents. Most everything else we do is contracted out.
What changes do you see, would you like to see in the next few years with the city of Laguna Woods?
Well, I would like to see our budget easing, but I'm not sure that's realistic. I would like to see our citizens get more involved in functions that are wider ranging. We have a huge bank of talent here. You and I were discussing that earlier. We have retired people with enormous experience and some time on their hands.
Indeed.
And there are a lot of ways that we could expand the influence of Laguna Woods by having those people go out and sit on some of these regional bodies that we talked about. We do have someone from this city who sits on the grand jury, on the Orange County grand jury.
Really?
Which is pretty much a full-time job for a year.
I would think.
But in many cases, you don't have to be an elected official to serve on a board. I have a colleague who's simply appointed by the county supervisor to sit on the Waste Management Commission and help us move into organics recycling.
If this strikes a chord with somebody, what would be the next step to make it known that they would like to be considered?
I think they should come to City Hall and ask to speak to me, the mayor, or to our city manager about what kinds of opportunities there are for non-elected people to serve on regional boards.
Well, Cynthia, it's been a delight sharing this time with you. We've been talking with Cynthia Connors, Her Honor, the mayor of Laguna Woods.